you disgusting beggar! Get away from her! He's hungry! Leave him alone!
Don't bother the gentleman, Nia!
Get that filthy beggar away from my restaurant. Veronica Steele slammed her hand on the counter so hard the silverware jumped. Every customer turned at once. Phones rose into the air. Laughter spread across the warm restaurant like poison. Nia Brooks froze near the doorway with a small paper bag pressed against her chest. Inside were 2 pieces of bread. Nothing more. Rain dripped from her faded waitress uniform. Her shoes were soaked through. Her hands were shaking. Outside the glass window, the blind beggar sat quietly against the wall, his dark glasses hiding his eyes, his torn coat heavy with rain. "Please," Nia whispered. "He has not eaten since yesterday." Veronica stepped closer in her expensive white coat. Gold earrings shone beneath the chandelier lights. Behind her stood rich customers, crystal glasses, clean plates, and warm food nobody had to beg for. Behind Nia stood rain, hunger, unpaid rent, and one tiny bottle of medicine in her pocket. The last medicine her sick mother had left. Veronica looked Nia up and down with disgust. "And who will pay for it?" "You." The room laughed. Nia lowered her eyes. "I will work extra hours." Her voice almost broke. "Please do not throw him away like he is nothing." Veronica smiled coldly. "You already owe this restaurant money. Your mother cannot pay her bills. And now you want to feed street trash." The words cut through Nia's chest. Outside, the blind man did not move, but his head tilted slightly, as if every cruel word had entered him slowly. A young man at one table laughed. "Maybe she belongs outside with him." Another customer whispered, "Poor people always protect their own kind." Nia's face burned. She looked down because looking up hurt too much. Veronica suddenly snatched the paper bag from Nia's hands. "No," Nia gasped. "Please." Veronica threw the bread straight into the trash. The sound was small, but to Nia, it felt like something inside her had been thrown away too. "There," Veronica said. "Now he can eat where people like him belong." Laughter rose again. Someone moved closer with a phone. Nia rushed to the trash can and reached inside with trembling hands. "Please stop filming," she whispered. "Please. This is all I had." But nobody lowered their phone. Nobody protected her. One waiter near the counter took one small step forward. Hope flickered across Nia's wet face. Just for 1 second. Maybe somebody still had a heart. Veronica turned on him instantly. "If you defend her, you leave with her." The waiter froze. Then he stepped back. Hope died in front of everyone. Power had chosen its side. Nia slowly pulled the ruined bread bag from the trash and held it against her chest. "I only wanted him to eat," she said softly. Veronica leaned closer. Poor girls always say kind things right before they steal. Nia flinched. "I did not steal." "Then why are you always begging?" Veronica snapped. "Begging for food. Begging for hours. Begging for pity. Begging for your mother's medicine." The room went quiet for half a second. That was the part Nia could not hide. Her mother, the coughing, the unpaid clinic bill, the empty medicine bottle waiting at home. Nia touched her pocket where the last tiny bottle rested. Her voice fell lower. "Please do not fire me. My mother needs this job more than I do." Veronica laughed softly. "Your mother is not my problem." Outside, thunder rolled across the street. Then the blind beggar spoke for the first time. His voice was deep, calm, and controlled. She did nothing wrong. Every face turned toward him. Veronica's eyes narrowed. "You do not speak here." The blind man stayed still. "Then why are you punishing her for being kind?" The room changed. Not fully, just enough for the laughter to weaken. Nia looked at him in fear. "Please," she whispered, "do not make it worse." Veronica grabbed Nia's arm and pulled her away from the trash can. "You are fired." Nia stared at her like the words had stopped her heart. No, her voice cracked instantly. "Please, I need this job. I will clean all night. I will take no tips. I will do anything. Get on your knees if you want to beg so badly," Veronica said coldly. Gasps moved through the restaurant. Nia did not want to kneel, but she thought of her mother gasping for breath in their dark apartment. She thought of the medicine bill. She thought of the rent notice on the table. Slowly, with shaking legs, she lowered herself to the wet floor. "Please," she whispered, "do not take my last chance." Veronica pulled the employee badge from Nia's uniform and dropped it at her feet. You never had a chance here. The room fell into a cruel silence. Some customers looked away. Others kept recording. Nia reached for the badge with tears falling down her face. Then her medicine bottle slipped from her pocket, hit the floor, and shattered. Tiny pills rolled under the tables. No, Nia Karaith. Please, no. She dropped to her hands and knees, trying to gather them before shoes crushed them. A man stepped backward like the medicine was dirt. A woman laughed under her breath. Veronica folded her arms. Maybe next time you'll feed your mother instead of a useless beggar. The blind man's hand tightened around his old silver cane. His sleeve lifted slightly. Under the torn coat, something flashed beneath the restaurant lights. A silver watch. Clean, heavy, expensive. Far too expensive for any street beggar. Nia did not see it. Veronica did not see it. But an elderly customer near the window did. His smile vanished. That watch, he whispered. Veronica pointed toward the door. Throw them both out. 2 security guards moved in. One grabbed Nia's old bag and threw it into the street puddle. Another stepped toward the blind man. Nia stood between them without thinking. Small, soaked, humiliated, still protecting someone poorer than herself. Please, she said through tears. Do not hurt him. Veronica laughed. Look at her. She has nothing, and she still thinks she can save someone. The guards pushed the door open. Rain crashed inside. Nia stumbled onto the sidewalk, her uniform clinging to her skin, her ruined bread bag in one hand, her broken badge in the other. Behind her, the restaurant glowed with warmth she no longer belonged to. In front of her, the street was dark and cold. The blind beggar stood beside her slowly, taller than anyone expected, straighter than anyone expected, calm in a way that did not fit his torn clothes. Then a black luxury car stopped at the curb so suddenly that water splashed across the pavement. Every voice inside the restaurant died. The driver rushed out with an umbrella, his face pale with fear and relief. He did not look at Veronica. He did not look at the crowd. He went straight to the blind beggar and bowed his head. Mr. Kane, he whispered, we have been searching for you everywhere. The black luxury car stopped beside the flooded sidewalk, and the whole restaurant went silent. Rain beat against the windows while the driver hurried out with a black umbrella in his shaking hand. He did not look at Veronica Steele. He did not look at the customers. He went straight to the blind beggar and lowered his voice. Mr. Kane, he said carefully, please come home. Everyone has been searching for you. Nia Brooks stood frozen near the door, soaked from head to toe, still holding her broken employee badge. Behind her, the shattered medicine bottle lay on the restaurant floor. Tiny pills floated in dirty rainwater. Veronica suddenly laughed, but it sounded thin now. This is ridiculous. That man is a beggar. The blind man slowly lifted his face toward the rain. His dark glasses hid his eyes, but his voice stayed calm. A coat can lie. Hunger can lie. A street corner can lie. The room went quiet again. Nia stared at him in confusion. You know him? She whispered to the driver. The driver looked at her, then stopped. His eyes dropped to the old silver bracelet on her wrist. A small lion was engraved beside the letter K. His expression changed instantly. Where did you get that? Nia quickly covered the bracelet with her wet sleeve. It belonged to my mother. Mr. Kane turned slightly toward her. For the first time, his calm face shifted. Just a little. Just enough. Veronica saw it too. Fear flashed across her eyes before she hid it behind anger. Do not listen to her, Veronica snapped. She stole food from my restaurant. I paid for it with my wages, Nia said softly. Liar, Veronica hissed. The customers whispered again. Phone stayed raised. Rich guests looked at Nia's faded uniform, her wet hair, her cheap shoes, and they almost believed Veronica again. Power was still louder than truth. Mr. Kane tilted his head toward Veronica's voice. Did you throw away her food? Veronica crossed her arms. She was feeding trash. Did you break her medicine too? He asked. This time, a few customers looked down at the pills on the floor. One elderly woman near the window whispered, That girl begged for her mother. Tiny hope touched Nia's face. Somebody had seen her pain. But Veronica pointed sharply at the guards. Get her away before she tricks more people. The guard stepped forward. Mr. Kane's driver moved first. Nobody touches her. Silence hit the room like thunder. Nia lowered her eyes, ashamed and overwhelmed. She was not used to being protected. Please, she whispered. I do not want trouble. Mr. Kane stepped closer to her voice, but not too close. Why did you feed me every day? Nia swallowed hard. Because hungry people should eat. The words made him go still, deeply still, as if they had opened a door inside him. Veronica noticed the change and quickly cut in. She says things like that to manipulate people. Poor girls learn sympathy early. Nia's voice broke. I never asked him for money. And if you're listening to this right now, comment where you're watching from and tell me who you believe in this moment. The poor girl who gave food when she had almost nothing, or the rich woman trying to silence her. The driver kept staring at the bracelet. Mr. Kane, he said quietly, the symbol is the same. Mr. Kane slowly reached toward Nia's wrist, then stopped before touching her. Who gave this to your mother? Nia stepped back. Her hands trembled. She said it belonged to someone who disappeared many years ago. Veronica's face lost color. The elderly woman near the window leaned forward and whispered, I have seen that bracelet before. Veronica turned on her instantly. Mind your business. The woman fell silent. Fear won again. Nia closes here wits title. I should go home. My mother is alone. Behind Veronica were chandeliers, wine glasses, warm lights, and people who had never missed a meal. Behind Nia were rain, debt, broken medicine, and a sick woman waiting in a dark apartment. Mr. Kane's voice softened. What is your mother's name? Nia froze. Veronica's breathing changed. Why does that matter? Mr. Kane ignored her. Tell me her name. Nia looked terrified now, as if the name itself had been hidden for years. Angela Brooks, she whispered. Mr. Kane gripped his silver cane so tightly his knuckles whitened. The driver stared at him in shock. The elderly woman covered her mouth. Then Nia's cracked phone began to ring. She answered with shaking fingers, and her mother's weak voice cried through the speaker. Nia, do not let the Kane family see the bracelet. Angela's weak voice trembled through Nia's cracked phone. Do not let the Kane family see the bracelet. Rain fell hard around the restaurant entrance. Nia Brooks froze with the phone pressed to her ear, her wet hair sticking to her face. Mr. Kane stood a few steps away beneath the umbrella, silent, listening. Veronica Steele stood behind the glass door, her confident smile almost gone. Mama. Nia whispered. What do you mean? A painful cough came through the speaker. Then the call cut off. Nia's face emptied of color. I have to go. She backed away from the black luxury car, hiding the bracelet under her sleeve like it could burn her skin. Mr. Kane turned slightly toward his driver. Follow her, he said quietly. From a distance. Nia heard enough to feel afraid. She looked at him with hurt in her eyes. Please leave us alone. Mr. Kane did not answer. He only stood there, calm and unreadable, while Veronica watched from inside the restaurant with panic growing behind her eyes. 20 minutes later, Nia pushed open the door of her tiny apartment building. The hallway smelled of old smoke and leaking pipes. Paint peeled from the walls. A neighbor opened her door just enough to whisper. The landlord came again. He said tonight is the last warning. Nia forced a weak smile. Thank you. Her smile disappeared the moment she turned away. Upstairs, Angela Brooks lay on a worn couch beneath a thin blanket. Empty medicine bottles sat beside her. A bowl of cold soup rested untouched on the floor. On a thin mattress near the window, Nia's little son Elijah slept curled under an old jacket, his small hand still holding a broken toy car. Nia paused when she saw him. Another life depending on her. Another heart she could not let the world crush. Angela opened her eyes weakly. Is he asleep? Nia nodded. He was waiting for me. Her voice almost broke. She rushed to her mother and touched her forehead. Mama, why did you say that about the Kane family? Angela grabbed Nia's wrist the second she saw the bracelet. Fear filled her sick eyes. Hide it. Why? Nia asked. Because some names bring danger. Nia's voice broke. We already live with danger. We owe rent. Your medicine is gone. I lost my job tonight. Elijah has not eaten a real meal since yesterday. Angela looked away, ashamed and silent. That silence hurt more than an answer. On the small table were unpaid hospital bills, an eviction notice, Elijah's school note asking for lunch money, and a framed photograph turned face down. Nia picked it up slowly. In the photo, a younger Angela stood beside a tall man whose face had been torn away. Only his wrist remained visible. A silver watch, the same kind of watch Nia had seen under Mr. Kane's torn coat. Her breath caught. "Mama, who is this man?" Angela's eyes filled with tears. "Promise me you will not chase rich people for answers." Nia looked at the empty medicine bottles, then at Elijah sleeping beside the broken window. "I'm not chasing answers. I'm trying to keep all of us alive." Across the street, the black luxury car waited in the rain. Mr. Kane sat in the back seat while his driver handed him a tablet. "We found an old record," the driver said carefully. "Angela Brooks worked at the Kane estate 26 years ago." Mr. Kane's hand tightened on his silver cane. "And after that?" The driver hesitated. Her file disappeared. Back upstairs, Nia opened the refrigerator. Empty. Only half a bottle of water sat inside. Her stomach tightened with hunger, but she tore the dry edge from an old loaf of bread and placed half beside Angela and half beside Elijah for when he woke. Tiny hope came when Nia found $20 hidden in her apron pocket. She stared at it like it was a miracle. "I can still buy medicine." Then loud banging shook the apartment door. "Open up," the landlord shouted. 3 months late, Elijah stirred on the mattress and whispered, "Mama." Nia quickly touched his shoulder. "Stay behind me, baby." She hid the money in her palm and opened the door slowly. The landlord stepped in with an eviction paper. "Tomorrow morning." "Out." Angela began to cry quietly. Elijah clung to Nia's faded uniform. Nia stood in front of both of them. "Please. My mother is sick, and my son has nowhere else to sleep." "Then ask your rich visitors," he mocked, looking through the window at the luxury car below. Nia turned and saw Mr. Kane's shadow inside the car. Watching, not saving her, just watching. Her phone rang again. Unknown number. She answered with shaking fingers. A calm male voice spoke. "Miss Brooks, Mr. Kane needs to ask about your bracelet." Nia looked at the torn photograph, the missing face, the silver watch, her sick mother, and Elijah staring up at her with frightened eyes. "Who is he really?" she whispered. The caller went silent for one long second. Then he answered softly, "That is exactly what Mr. Kane is trying to remember." "Mr." Kane slowly lowered the phone after hearing Nia's whisper. "Who is he really?" Rain slid down the window of the black luxury car outside her apartment building. For a long moment, he said nothing. Then he turned toward his driver. "Give me every file connected to Angela Brooks," he said quietly. "Every missing page. Every old record." His voice stayed calm, but his face had changed. Deep suspicion now lived there. Upstairs, Nia sat beside her sick mother under the flickering kitchen light. The eviction notice lay on the table beside the torn photograph. Angela stared at the old bracelet on Nia's wrist like it was a wound from the past. "You should not speak to that man," she whispered weakly. "Why?" Nia asked. Angela coughed before she could answer. Then she closed her eyes. "Because rich men protect secrets before they protect people." Emotional silence filled the tiny room. Across town, the Kane mansion glowed beneath golden lights. Marble floors, expensive paintings, servants moving without sound. But inside his private office, Mr. Kane ignored the wealth around him. Old boxes covered his desk now. Employment files, estate visitor logs, medical reports with missing dates. Marcus stood beside him with a tablet. "Angela Brooks worked at the Kane estate 26 years ago," Marcus said carefully. "Then she disappeared after a private incident." Mr. Kane looked up. "What incident?" Marcus hesitated. "The page is gone. Tiny hope. Tiny obstacle." Mr. Kane picked up the photo Marcus had copied from the apartment hallway camera. It showed the torn picture in Nia's hand. The man's face was missing, but the silver watch remained. Mr. Kane stared at it. His own watch. A Kane family heirloom. "That should not be there," he whispered. Meanwhile, Veronica Steele stood in her penthouse with a phone pressed to her ear. Her polished smile was gone. "Find out what that girl knows," she snapped, "and remove every old record connected to Angela Brooks." Her lawyer sounded nervous. "Mr. Kane is already asking questions." Veronica's eyes hardened. "Then stop him before he asks the right one." Back at the apartment, Nia folded laundry with trembling hands while trying not to look afraid. Then someone knocked softly. She froze. The landlord again? When she opened the door, an elderly black woman stood there holding an umbrella. Her eyes went straight to Nia's covered wrist. "You are Angela's daughter?" Nia nodded slowly. The woman's voice dropped. "My name is Miriam. I worked at the Kane estate." Angela's face lost color from the couch. "Miriam, please do not." Miriam stepped inside anyway. That bracelet belonged to someone powerful. Nia's breathing slowed. "Who?" Before Miriam could answer, Angela cried out in pain. Nia ran to her mother, and the moment shattered. Another answer lost. Another door closed. Across the city, Marcus opened an old Kane estate security archive. The footage was damaged and gray. A young woman hurried through a mansion hallway with something wrapped in a blanket. Her face was blurred. Her wrist was not. The bracelet flashed clearly. Marcus leaned closer. "Sir." Mr. Kane stepped toward the screen. "Pause it." The image froze on the bracelet. The same lion. The same letter K. Mr. Kane's jaw tightened. Who was she carrying? Marcus checked another file, then frowned. The hospital record connected to that night is incomplete. Mother's name appears once. Angela Brooks. The father's line is locked. Mr. Kane looked at the screen again. Locked by whom? Marcus did not answer. The mystery only grew. Back in the apartment, Miriam pulled Nia aside while Angela slept weakly. "Listen to me," she whispered. "Some people inside that family will destroy anyone who touches this truth." Nia's eyes filled with fear. "What truth?" Miriam looked toward the door before answering. "Your life did not begin where you think it did." At that exact moment, headlights flashed through the window below. A black luxury car stopped outside the building. Nia moved to the window and froze. Veronica Steele stepped out first, calm and cold beneath an umbrella. Another car stopped behind her. Mr. Kane emerged silently with a hospital file in his hand. Veronica saw the file, and for the first time, fear crossed her face. Veronica Steele stood under the broken hallway light with rain dripping from her white coat. Her face looked calm, but her fingers tightened around her designer handbag when she saw the hospital file in Mr. Kane's hand. Nia Brooks stood frozen in her apartment doorway. Behind her, Angela coughed weakly on the couch. Miriam lowered her eyes like she already knew trouble had arrived. "You should not be here," Veronica said coldly. Mr. Kane stepped forward without raising his voice. "Neither should you." The hallway went silent. Neighbors cracked their doors open. Phones slowly appeared. Veronica looked past him toward Nia. "This conversation does not concern you." "She lives here," Mr. Kane replied. "That makes her the center of it." Nia swallowed hard. She still wore the same soaked uniform from the restaurant. Her shoes were muddy. Her hands were shaking, but she stood in front of her mother anyway. Veronica smiled with quiet cruelty. Look at her. One night near wealth, and now she thinks she belongs near the Kane name. Nia's voice came out small. "I never asked for your name." "Poor girls always say that before they start begging for money," Veronica snapped. The words hit hard. Neighbors whispered at once. "She fooled rich people. Maybe that bracelet was stolen. Why is a Kane car outside for her?" Social pressure filled the hallway like smoke. Then the landlord appeared behind Veronica with eviction papers in his hand. His eyes would not meet Nia's. "Miss Brooks," he said nervously, "the building owners want you out tonight." Nia's face collapsed. "Tonight?" Angela tried to sit up. "Please, my daughter did nothing." A cough stopped her. Nia rushed to hold her mother, but Veronica stepped into the apartment like she owned the air inside it. "There have been fraud complaints," Veronica said loudly for the neighbors to hear. "Stolen documents, false stories, attempts to manipulate a powerful family." Nia shook her head. "That is not true." "Then prove it," Veronica said. Two guards moved behind her. Mr. Kane stepped between them and Nia. "Nobody touches her." The guard stopped. Tiny hope flickered across Nia's face. But Veronica recovered fast. You are protecting emotion, Adrian, not truth. Mr. Kane looked at her carefully. And you are protecting fear. Veronica's mask cracked for 1 second. Then she pointed toward Nia's old bag on the floor. Search it. You cannot do that, Nia whispered. Watch me, Veronica answered. One guard emptied the bag before anyone could stop him. Bills fell out. Empty medicine bottles. A torn apron. A cheap loaf of bread. Then the silver bracelet slipped from his side pocket and landed on the floor. Veronica froze. Mr. Kane noticed instantly. You recognize it. It means nothing, she said too fast. Miriam suddenly whispered, that bracelet belonged to Evelyn Kane. Silence struck the room. Nia stared at her. Who is Evelyn Kane? Veronica turned sharply. Be quiet. Mr. Kane picked up the bracelet slowly. His thumb brushed across the tiny lion and the letter K. His face changed, but he still did not reveal anything. Not yet. Where did Angela get this? He asked. Veronica cut in. From theft. From lies. From whatever story this girl has been building. Nia's eyes filled with tears, but she did not look away. I have been working since I was 16. I fed a hungry man. That is all I did. The hallway quieted. For one breath, people almost believed her. Then Veronica pointed at the eviction paper. Remove them tonight. Angela began crying softly. Nia held her mother's hand and whispered, We have nowhere to go. Mr. Kane looked toward Marcus, who had just entered the doorway with his phone in his hand. Check every archive linked to Evelyn Kane and Angela Brooks, he ordered. Veronica's face tightened again. Angela suddenly grabbed Nia's wrist from the couch. Do not let them take the letter, she whispered. Veronica's head snapped toward her. What letter? Nia realized the mistake too late. Mr. Kane moved before Veronica could reach the bedroom. Nobody touches anything else. Veronica's calm finally broke. You do not understand what you are opening. Mr. Kane stared at her. No, I think I finally do. At that moment, Marcus's phone buzzed. He looked down, then slowly lifted his eyes in shock. Sir, he whispered, we found the original hospital archive. Veronica went pale. Marcus swallowed hard. And the page everyone thought was missing was never missing at all. Marcus slowly lowered the phone after reading the recovered hospital archive. Nobody inside the apartment moved. Rain tapped against the cracked windows while Veronica Steele stood near the doorway with all the color gone from her face. Read it, Mr. Kane said quietly. Marcus hesitated. Sir, read it. The room tightened. Marcus swallowed hard. Hospital sponsor, Kane Foundation Private Ward. Mother, Angela Brooks. Nia Brooks stared at her mother on the couch. Angela began crying softly before the next words even came. Marcus looked down again. There is a protected family note attached to the file. The page was not missing. It was sealed. Silence filled the apartment. Veronica stepped forward fast. That document is fake. Mr. Kane turned toward her voice. Then why did you come here before anyone else saw it? Veronica opened her mouth, but no answer came. Nia's breathing became uneven. Mama, she whispered, why is your name in their hospital file? Angela covered her face with one trembling hand. I try to protect you. The words hurt Nia more than the silence. Protect her from what? Protect her from whom? Marcus opened a damaged security clip on his tablet. The image was gray and broken. It showed a young woman moving quickly through a hospital hallway with something wrapped in a blanket. Her face was not clear, but the bracelet on her wrist was. The same lion. The same letter K. The room went silent again. Mr. Kane looked from the screen to Nia's bracelet. That is the first truth somebody failed to bury, he said quietly. Veronica snapped. It proves nothing. But her voice shook. Miriam stood near the wall with tears in her eyes. I remember that night, she whispered. People were told never to speak of it. Nia stepped backward as if the room had become too small. No, this is not my life. I am just a waitress. I just wanted medicine for my mother. Her voice cracked. Mr. Kane softened, but he did not move too close. You deserve to know why they are afraid of you. If you're listening right now, comment what you think this clue means. Who sealed Angela's file? And why is Veronica so afraid of a poor girl's bracelet? The question seemed to hang in the room like thunder. Marcus then removed a small evidence bag from his coat. Inside was a tiny silver baby bracelet recovered from the old archive box. It carried the same lion mark. The initials were hard to read, but one letter was clear. N. Nia stared at it until tears filled her eyes. Why does that look like mine? Veronica cut in immediately. Because desperate people create desperate stories. Angela suddenly grabbed Nia's hand from the couch. Inside the blue box, she whispered painfully. The last letter. Veronica's head snapped toward her. What letter? Too late. Nia saw the fear on Veronica's face. Mr. Kane saw it too. Marcus, he said calmly, find the box. Before Marcus could move, the apartment lights went out. Darkness swallowed the room. Angela cried out. Nia clutched her mother's hand. A door creaked from the bedroom. Then footsteps ran down the hallway. Marcus switched on his phone light and rushed to the closet. Empty. The blue box was gone. Veronica slowly stepped backward toward the exit, her calm returning like a mask. You still do not have enough proof, she whispered. Marcus's phone rang at that exact moment. A terrified voice came through the speaker. Miriam, they found me, she cried. The letter says the child was never supposed to disappear. The call cut off. Complete silence returned. Mr. Kane tightened his grip on the silver cane. Nobody leaves this building, he said. But outside, inside a black car across the street, Veronica's driver already held the stolen blue box in his hands. Mr. Kane's voice stayed calm after Miriam's terrified call cut into silence. Nobody leaves this building, he said. Marcus rushed into the hallway while the apartment remained dark, lit only by the weak glow of a phone flashlight. Nia Brooks stood beside her mother, still holding Angela's trembling hand. Her heart was racing. Her life had become files, rich names, stolen boxes, and people whispering about secrets she never asked for. Across the street, Veronica Steele sat inside a black car while her driver handed her the stolen blue box. She opened it just enough to see faded letters tied with a silver ribbon. Her face hardened. Get rid of them, she whispered. Before the driver could move, headlights flashed behind them. Mr. Kane's security team had arrived. Veronica closed the box quickly, but fear had already touched her eyes. Back upstairs, Mr. Kane picked up Nia's silver bracelet from the table and placed it gently back into her hands. He did not touch her skin. He only let the bracelet rest in her palm. Keep this safe, he said quietly. Nia looked at him through tired eyes. Why are you helping me? For a moment, he did not answer. Then he looked toward Angela lying weakly on the couch. Because someone tried very hard to erase your life. The words made the room go still. Nia looked away fast, ashamed of the tears rising in her eyes. Nobody had protected her like that before. Not at the restaurant. Not in the hallway. Not when the landlord came. But protection still felt dangerous. I do not belong in your world, she whispered. Maybe your world was stolen from you, he answered softly. Veronica appeared again in the doorway before Nia could respond. Her smile was sharp, but her voice shook. You are crossing a dangerous line, Adrian. Mr. Kane stood between Veronica and Nia without raising his voice. You stole evidence. Veronica laughed softly. Evidence of what? A poor girl building a fantasy. Nia flinched at the word poor. Mr. Kane noticed. Enough. One word. Quiet. Final. Angela coughed hard, and Nia rushed back to her side. Mr. Kane saw the unpaid medical bills scattered near the couch. Expired prescriptions. Hospital warnings. A life measured in debts and fear. She needs treatment tonight, he said. Nia shook her head immediately. We cannot pay. I will handle the hospital, he replied. Nothing more. No promises you did not ask for. That made Nia look up. Tiny rescue. Not salvation. Just one door opening while every other door stayed closed. Angela grabbed Nia's wrist weakly. Do not trust rich promises too quickly, she whispered. Nia nodded, torn between fear and relief. Marcus returned with an enhanced image from the old archive footage. Sir, he said carefully, we recovered one clear frame. Mr. Kane took the image. It showed young Angela carrying a baby through a hallway. The baby's shoulder was partly visible beneath the blanket. A small crescent-shaped mark rested there. Mr. Kane's eyes shifted toward Nia. Her sweater sleeve had slipped earlier, just enough to show the same mark near her shoulder. Veronica saw his reaction and stepped forward quickly. Coincidences do not make family. But her voice no longer had power. Nia pulled her sleeve higher, frightened by the way everyone looked at her. "Stop staring at me like I am some missing thing." Mr. Kane lowered the photo at once. "You are not a thing." Silence followed. Soft, painful, human. Outside, an ambulance arrived below the building. Mr. Kane placed his coat carefully over Angela before the paramedics entered. Angela looked up at him with old fear and old memory in her eyes. "You sound like your mother," she whispered. He froze. Veronica froze too. Another clue had opened. As the paramedics lifted Angela onto the stretcher, Nia turned back to Mr. Kane. "Why do you look at me like you already know me?" He opened his mouth, then stopped. He still did not know enough. Marcus looked down at the enhanced image again and went pale. "Sir," he whispered, "there is someone else in the mirror behind Angela." Mr. Kane grabbed the photo. In the dark reflection stood a man wearing the Kane family ring. And beside him, almost hidden in shadow, was Evelyn Kane herself. Mr. Kane stared at the enhanced photograph in silence. Young Angela stood in the old hallway, holding a baby wrapped in a thin blanket. In the dark mirror behind her stood a man wearing the Kane family ring. Beside him, almost hidden in shadow, was Evelyn Kane herself. Rain tapped against the apartment window while the ambulance lights flashed below. Nia Brooks looked at the photograph, then at Mr. Kane. Her voice came out small. "Why is your family in my mother's past?" Mr. Kane did not answer at once. His jaw tightened, but his voice stayed calm. "That is what I need to know." Veronica Steele stepped forward quickly. "Old pictures prove nothing." Marcus looked down at the date printed on the back of the image. This was taken the same year Mr. Kane's father disappeared from public life. Emotional silence filled the room. Angela, weak on the stretcher, reached for Nia's hand. "Do not let them erase you too," she whispered. Nia froze. "Erase me from what?" Angela's eyes filled with tears. She looked at Mr. Kane with old fear and old recognition. From a truth they never wanted born. Veronica snapped. "She is sick. She does not know what she is saying." Mr. Kane turned to her. "Then why are you shaking?" Veronica's face hardened. "Because poor people lie when rich men start listening." Nia lowered her head as the old shame hit her again. Even here, beside an ambulance, beside her dying mother, Veronica still knew where to cut. Later that night, Angela was taken to a private hospital wing under quiet security. Nia walked beside the stretcher, clutching the bracelet in one hand and Elijah's small fingers in the other. The white hospital walls looked too clean for her life. Nurses whispered. Doors opened before Mr. Kane. People bowed their heads. Nia felt smaller with every step. She whispered, "We do not belong here." Mr. Kane answered softly, "Safety is not only for the rich." Veronica arrived minutes later, her anger hidden beneath perfect makeup. "You are humiliating this family over a beggar girl," she hissed. Mr. Kane looked at her without emotion. "Careful. You are beginning to sound guilty." Marcus soon returned with a sealed archive folder from Kane Holding Storage. Dust marked the edges. Inside were old hospital logs, private transfer notes, and one torn page with half a signature missing. Nia stared at the papers, unable to breathe normally. "Why is my mother in all of this?" she whispered. An elderly nurse stepped from the hallway shadows. Her hands trembled when she saw Angela. "I remember that night," she said softly. Veronica turned sharply. "Leave." But the nurse did not move. A woman came with lawyers. Everyone was afraid. They said the baby had to disappear quietly. The word baby struck Nia like a stone. She looked at Angela. "Mama, was that baby me?" Angela began crying, but no answer came. Tiny hope opened. Then pain closed it again. Mr. Kane asked the nurse, "Who ordered it?" The nurse shook her head, terrified. "I never saw every paper, but the Kane name was on every door." Marcus found a burned letter fragment hidden beneath the final page. Only one sentence was still readable. The child must remain under Kane blood protection until the truth returns. Nia stepped back. Her voice cracked. No, I'm not some secret. I'm not some file. Mr. Kane lowered the paper. You are not a file. Veronica cut in quickly. You are feeding her a fantasy. Nia turned toward her, tears shining, but her voice steady. You have called me poor, dirty, desperate, and a liar. But you have never looked surprised by any of this. The hallway went silent. For the first time, Veronica had no quick answer. Then Angela's monitor beeped faster. Nurses rushed into the room, pushing everyone back. Nia cried out, "Mama!" Chaos filled the hallway. Veronica used the moment to lean close to Marcus. If Adrian opens the rest of those files, this family dies, she whispered. Marcus pulled away, fear spreading across his face. The elderly nurse grabbed Mr. Kane's sleeve before he could enter Angela's room. Her voice shook so badly it almost broke. The woman who ordered everything. She looked past him toward the mansion crest on his ring. She still lives inside your house. Veronica heard every word from the hallway entrance. Her face turned cold, but her eyes showed real terror. The nurse's warning stayed in the hospital hallway like a curse. The woman who ordered everything still lives inside your house. Veronica Steele heard it. Adrian Kane heard it. Nia Brooks heard it too, and her fingers tightened around the bracelet until the metal pressed into her skin. Before anyone could ask another question, Veronica turned and walked away with her face calm again. That calm frightened Nia more than anger. By the next morning, Veronica had already built her trap. Angela remained under treatment, weak but safe for the moment. Nia sat beside her hospital bed with Elijah asleep against her lap, his small hand still holding the broken toy car from their apartment. He had followed his mother through fear, sirens, rich strangers, and secrets he was too young to understand. Marcus entered quietly with a worried face. "Mr. Kane wants you at the mansion," he said. Nia looked up in fear. "Why would he bring us there?" Marcus hesitated. "Because the person hiding the truth is there." Hours later, black cars stopped outside the Kane estate. The mansion rose behind iron gates, bright and cold under golden lights. Rich relatives had gathered for the Kane Foundation anniversary dinner. Crystal glasses, silk dresses, diamond earrings, soft music, and near the entrance stood Nia in a plain faded dress, holding Elijah's hand and her mother's old photograph against her chest. Every step made her feel smaller. Veronica crossed the ballroom with a perfect smile and stopped beside her. "Do not embarrass yourself tonight," she whispered. "People like you ruin beautiful rooms." Nia lowered her eyes, but she did not leave. "I came because my mother is tired of being afraid." Veronica's smile hardened. Then she should have kept quiet. Guests began to whisper. "That is the girl from the restaurant. The one who fed the blind beggar. Why is she inside this house?" Phones lifted again. Nia felt the same shame from the restaurant return. Different room. Same cruelty. Elijah squeezed her fingers and looked up at the chandeliers like they belonged to another planet. Then the trap closed. A lawyer stepped onto the ballroom floor, holding a stack of old documents. "Mr. Kane," he announced loudly, "these archive pages were found inside Miss Brooks' belongings." Gasps spread through the mansion. Nia stared at him in horror. "No, that is not true." Veronica turned slowly toward the guests. First, she fed a beggar for sympathy. Now she steals from this family. Elijah clung to Nia's dress. "My mama did not steal." A few guests looked away from the child, ashamed for 1 second. Tiny hope. Veronica crushed it immediately. Children repeat what desperate mothers teach them. Nia's face broke, but her voice stayed soft. "Do not talk about my son." Adrian stood near the long table, silent, studying the documents. He did not accuse her. He did not save her either. He still lacked the final proof. That silence hurt Nia more than Veronica's words. Veronica pushed harder. She wants money. She wants a name. She wants to turn kindness into a claim. Several guests nodded. Wealth believed wealth first. A security guard stepped toward Nia. "Miss, you should leave the property." Nia held Elijah behind her and whispered, "Please, I did not do this." Adrian finally looked up. "If she stole those papers, Why are there no fingerprints from her on the archive box? The ballroom went quiet. Marcus noticed the same flaw. Veronica's jaw tightened for half a second. Then she recovered. Because someone helped her. The crowd shifted again. Obstacle, fear, and status won again. Nia looked around the room at every rich face judging her. At the chandeliers. At the polished floor. At the family portrait above the stairs. She almost stepped backward. Almost gave up. Then Elijah pulled something from his small jacket pocket. A flash drive. "Mama," he whispered, loud enough for nearby guests to hear. "The old nurse gave me this before they brought Grandma to her room. She said rich people were lying." Veronica went pale. "Take that child outside now," she shouted. Guards rushed forward. Nia wrapped both arms around Elijah. "Do not touch him." Adrian moved at last, quiet and controlled. He took the flash drive from Elijah's hand and looked directly at Veronica. "Interesting," he said, "because this looks like the missing hospital footage." Veronica forced a smile, but fear filled her eyes. Before anyone could move again, the massive ballroom doors opened. Marcus entered carrying a sealed archive folder. Behind him walked the elderly nurse, trembling but alive. The entire room fell silent as the giant presentation screen slowly lit up. The giant ballroom screen slowly lit up as Marcus entered with the sealed archive folder. Behind him stood the elderly nurse, trembling but alive. The entire Kane mansion fell into a silence so deep that even the music seemed afraid to continue. Nia Brooks stood near the back of the room with Elijah pressed against her side. Her hand held his small shoulder. Her other hand held the old photograph against her chest. She still looked out of place among the diamonds, silk gowns, polished shoes, and golden lights. But she did not run. Veronica Steele saw the screen, the nurse, the folder, and the flash drive in Adrian Kane's hand. For 1 second, her face lost all control. Then her smile returned. "Cold. Perfect. False. This has gone far enough," she said sharply. "A sick woman, a poor waitress, and an old nurse cannot destroy a respected family." The nurse flinched, but she did not lower her eyes this time. "Respect built on lies is still a lie," she whispered. The ballroom froze. Adrian stepped toward the long table at the center of the room. He placed the flash drive beside the old photograph, the sealed folder, and the silver bracelet. He did not open anything yet. He only let the objects sit under the chandelier light, heavy with questions. "Nobody leaves this room," he said calmly. Several wealthy guests looked toward the doors. The guard stayed still. Veronica gave a soft laugh. "You are embarrassing yourself over strangers." Adrian looked directly at her. "Then why are you afraid of the truth?" Silence struck again. Nia felt every eye turn toward her. Some people still looked at her torn dress. Some looked at Elijah. Some looked at the bracelet on her wrist. She wanted to disappear, but Elijah squeezed her hand. "Mama," he whispered, "you did not do anything wrong." That small voice broke something in the room. One woman lowered her phone. Another guest looked away in shame. Tiny Hope entered. Veronica crushed it fast. "That child has been taught what to say," she snapped. "This girl used kindness to enter this house. She fed a blind man for sympathy, and now she wants the Kane name." Nia lifted her head slowly. Her voice shook, but she spoke. "I never asked for your money. I only gave food to someone hungry." The words moved through the ballroom, softer than a prayer, but stronger than Veronica's shouting. If you're listening to this story right now, comment who you believe deserves justice here. The poor woman who kept giving with almost nothing left, or the powerful people trying to decide what truth is allowed to be heard. Marcus opened the archive folder halfway, then stopped. Adrian raised one hand. "Not yet." The tension sharpened. The nurse stepped forward with tears in her eyes. "I was at the hospital that night," she said. Gasps spread through the guests. Veronica pointed at her. "She is confused," Adrian asked quietly. "Then why did the records disappear?" Veronica's mouth tightened. No answer came. Tiny Hope rose again. Then Veronica struck one final time. "Look at her," she shouted, pointing at Nia. "Look at her clothes. Look at her story. She wants all of you to believe she belongs here." A few guests shifted uncomfortably. The old shame returned to Nia's face. She nearly stepped back. Adrian turned slightly toward her without touching her. "Stay," he said. One word. Quiet. Protective. Nia stopped. Elijah held her tighter. Marcus inserted the flash drive into the ballroom system. The screen flickered once. Veronica turned pale. The nurse covered her mouth. Adrian picked up the remote and faced the crowd. "Before you judge her," he said calmly, "watch this." The old security footage began to play across the ballroom wall. Static flickered first. Then a grainy black and white image appeared from St. Mercy Hospital 24 years earlier. Every guest stared upward. The waiters stopped moving. The music died completely. On the screen, a young Angela Brooks hurried through a private hospital entrance during a storm, holding a newborn baby wrapped in a thin blanket. Nia froze. Her hand tightened around Elijah's shoulder. "Mama," she whispered, but no sound came after that. Veronica Steele stepped forward quickly. "This proves nothing." Adrian Kane did not look at her. "Let it continue." The footage moved down the hallway. A younger version of the elderly nurse appeared near the door, crying and shaking her head. Then another woman entered the frame, wearing an expensive coat and holding a Kane family umbrella. The camera caught the woman's hand as she reached for the baby. A gold Kane family ring flashed under the hospital light. The exact ring now resting on the ballroom table. A glass slipped from a guest's hand and shattered. Nobody laughed. Nobody whispered. The nurse covered her mouth as tears ran down her face. "I beg her not to take the child," she said, her voice breaking. "She said the baby would ruin the family name." Veronica snapped. "That woman on the screen is not me." Marcus calmly placed an old hospital transfer form beneath the chandelier light. "Then explain your legal maiden name on this document." The room went still again. The signature matched Veronica's old records perfectly. Veronica stared at the page as if it had betrayed her. "That paper was destroyed," she whispered before she could stop herself. Adrian turned to her slowly. "Destroyed by whom?" Veronica opened her mouth, but no answer came. Nia stepped backward, trembling. "What child are you talking about?" Elijah looked up at her, scared by the silence. Marcus placed a second document on the table. A birth certificate. The paper was old, but the name was clear. Female child, Naomi Grace Carter. Mother, Angela Brooks. Private ward, Kane Foundation. Nia stared at the name until the room blurred. "Naomi," she whispered. The nurse nodded through tears. "That was your birth name." The word struck Nia so hard her knees almost gave out. Elijah grabbed her hand. "Mama, is that you?" She could not answer. For years, poverty had felt like fate. Shame had felt like her only inheritance. Now strangers in silk and diamonds were staring at the proof that her life had been stolen before she could even speak. Veronica pointed at her with shaking fingers. "She forged this. She wants this family's money." The nurse stepped forward. "No, I was there." Her voice was small, but this time it did not break. Angela begged to keep her baby safe. Adrian moved beside Nia, not touching her, only standing close enough to stop the crowd from swallowing her. "You will listen to every word," he said calmly. Quiet authority filled the ballroom. Marcus opened the final page inside the folder. It was a private letter written by Adrian's late father. Even before he read it, Veronica looked like she could not breathe. Marcus spoke slowly. "If anything happens to the child, she must inherit my protection and my family name when the truth returns." The ballroom became completely silent. Marcus lowered his voice for the final sentence. "The child Naomi Grace Carter is my granddaughter." Total silence. Nia looked at Adrian with tears on her face. Elijah clung to her side. Veronica tried to speak, but her voice cracked. "Impossible." Adrian faced her fully now. Calm, cold, certain. "You knew from the beginning." Veronica had no answer. The nurse reached into her purse with trembling hands and pulled out one last photograph, clearer than the old footage. It showed Veronica standing beside young Angela on the same stormy hospital night, holding the transfer papers while the baby cried in the nurse's arms. Every guest turned toward Veronica. Marcus looked down at the last sealed section of the archive and whispered, "There are also legal inheritance documents attached to this file." Veronica's face went white as the entire ballroom stared at her. The ballroom remained frozen after Marcus whispered about the legal inheritance documents. Every eye turned toward Veronica Steele. The old hospital footage still glowed on the mansion wall. The photograph, the gold Kane family ring, the birth certificate, and the transfer papers rested under the chandelier light like silent witnesses. Veronica tried to stand tall, but her breathing had changed. "This is a misunderstanding," she said weakly. "I protected this family." Nobody answered her. Not one guest. Not one relative. Not one servant by the wall. Adrian Kane stepped forward with quiet authority. His silver cane touched the marble once. "You stole a child from her own blood," he said. "Then you watch her suffer for 24 years. The words landed across the ballroom like judgment. Veronica shook her head. "I did what your father wanted." Marcus lifted the letter again. "That is another lie." Soft gasps moved through the crowd. Adrian looked toward the elderly nurse. "Tell them what happened after Angela begged to keep her child." The nurse trembled, but she did not look away. "Veronica threatened her," she whispered. "She said Angela would lose everything if she spoke." Veronica snapped toward her. "You promised silence." The room reacted instantly. Sharp whispers spread from table to table. Veronica realized too late what she had admitted. Public silence returned harder than before. Nia Brooks, now Naomi Grace Carter in the eyes of the truth, stood beside Elijah with tears on her face. She did not smile. She did not shout. She only looked at the woman who had called her poor, dirty, desperate, and false. "I do not want revenge," Naomi said softly. "I want my mother to stop being afraid." The simple words broke the room more than anger ever could. Elijah held her hand tighter. "Mama did nothing wrong," he whispered. One wealthy woman who had laughed earlier began to cry. Another guest lowered his phone in shame. The same people who recorded Naomi's humiliation now could not look her in the eyes. Adrian turned back to Veronica. "You used the Kane name to bury a life. You will not use its power again." Marcus handed him the foundation papers. Adrian read them once, then spoke clearly. "Effective immediately, Veronica Steele is removed from all authority connected to the Kane Estate Foundation, Family Archives, and Charitable Board." Gasps filled the ballroom. Veronica staggered back. "You cannot do this to me." Adrian did not raise his voice. "You did it to yourself." The lawyer stepped forward with the sealed inheritance file. "The records confirm Naomi Grace Carter as a legal member of the Kane bloodline," he announced. "Her identity and family rights will be restored through the proper legal process." Naomi covered her mouth with one trembling hand. Her name, her history, her stolen life, spoken in front of everyone who had judged her. Veronica tried one final time. "She is still poor. She does not belong here." Adrian looked at her coldly. "Money does not decide worth. Cruelty does not decide blood." The family members near Veronica slowly moved away from her. One by one, the woman who once controlled the room now stood alone in the center of it. Moral justice did not need shouting. It only needed truth. Marcus placed Naomi's restored identity papers into her hands. Naomi Grace Carter. The name looked strange, heavy, sacred. Adrian picked up the Kane family ring and held it out to her, but he did not force it into her hand. "This belonged to the family that failed you," he said softly. "What happens next must be your choice." Naomi looked at the ring, then at Elijah, then at the open mansion doors waiting beyond the ballroom. She was not healed yet. Her mother was still weak. Her heart was still full of questions. But for the first time, the room was no longer pushing her out. Adrian stepped aside and made a clear path through the crowd. "When you are ready," he said quietly, "you can walk in as yourself." Naomi held the papers against her chest. The entire ballroom stayed silent as she took one trembling step toward the open doors. Naomi Carter took one trembling step toward the open mansion doors while the ballroom stayed silent behind her. The restored identity papers pressed against her chest. Elijah held her hand tightly, his small fingers warm inside hers. The golden hallway ahead looked beautiful, but beauty still frightened her. For years, doors had closed in her face. Restaurant doors, hospital doors, apartment doors, rich family doors. Now the largest door she had ever seen stood open, and Naomi did not know how to walk through without expecting someone to push her back out. Adrian Kane stepped aside instead of leading her. "You decide what happens next," he said softly. Naomi looked at him with tearful eyes. Nobody had ever given her a choice before. Veronica Steele had tried to take her name. Poverty had tried to take her pride. Fear had tried to take her voice. Elijah tugged gently on her sleeve. "Mama," he whispered, "can we stay somewhere safe now?" Naomi closed her eyes for one painful second. She saw the cold apartment, the broken medicine bottle, the bread in the trash, Angela coughing in the dark. Then she nodded slowly. "Yes," she whispered, "we finally can." The guests moved aside as she entered the hallway. Some lowered their heads. Some could not look at her at all. One woman who had mocked her earlier stepped forward with tears in her eyes. "I judged you before I knew the truth," she said. "I am sorry." Naomi did not answer with anger. She only nodded. Her silence carried more dignity than revenge ever could. Inside the mansion, the noise of the ballroom faded behind her. The hallway was wide, bright, quiet. Naomi looked down at her old shoes on the polished floor and almost stepped back. Adrian noticed. "You do not have to become someone else to belong here," he said. "You only have to stop being pushed out." The words settled inside her slowly. Upstairs, a private medical room had been prepared for Angela. Clean sheets, warm blankets, real medicine, a nurse waiting without judgment. Naomi entered quietly and found her mother awake, weak but peaceful. Angela saw the restored papers in Naomi's hands and began to cry. "They gave your name back," she whispered. Naomi sat beside her and took her hand. "They cannot take it again." Angela touched the Kane family ring with trembling fingers. "Your grandmother wanted you protected," she said softly. "I tried so hard." Naomi leaned forward and held her carefully. "You kept me alive. That was enough." Elijah climbed onto the bed beside them and rested his head against Angela's arm. "Nobody will throw us out anymore," he said. The room went quiet. This time, silence did not feel cruel. It felt safe. Adrian stood near the doorway and did not interrupt. He only watched the family begin to breathe again. Later that night, Marcus brought a small wooden box into Naomi's room. Inside were the old photograph, the faded letter, the hospital bracelet, and the original birth certificate bearing the name Naomi Grace Carter. Naomi touched each object slowly. They had once been used to hide her life. Now they were proof that her life had mattered from the beginning. "I spent so many years begging people to see me," she whispered. Adrian answered gently, "You do not have to beg anymore." Days passed, but healing did not arrive all at once. Naomi still woke up early, afraid rent was due. She still saved leftover food out of habit. She still checked Angela's breathing in the middle of the night. But each day, the fear became a little quieter. Angela received proper care. Elijah laughed in the garden without looking over his shoulder. Naomi wore clean clothes chosen for comfort, not survival. The legal team began restoring her family rights through the proper process. Veronica Steele no longer controlled the estate, the foundation, or the family records. Her name remained only as a warning about what pride and cruelty can destroy. But Naomi did not build her new life around hatred. She had lost too many years already. One afternoon, she stood near the mansion window while sunlight touched her face. Outside, the rain that began everything was gone. Adrian came beside her with the old photograph in his hand. "Your mother once stood outside these gates afraid," he said quietly. "Now her daughter stands inside as herself." Naomi smiled through tears. Small, real, peaceful. Elijah ran across the garden and shouted, "Mama, Uncle Adrian, come see the fountain." Naomi laughed softly for the first time in a long time. No perfect ending, no grand speech, just safety, food on the table, medicine beside Angela's bed, a child running without fear. A woman who had been mocked for feeding a blind beggar, now standing inside the truth that kindness had awakened. That evening, Naomi placed the bracelet, the ring, and the photograph inside a glass case near the mansion piano. Not as reminders of shame, but as proof that truth survived. Outside, the sky cleared. Inside the mansion, once filled with secrets, laughter finally returned. Some people may mock the poor. Some may hide names and bury dignity. But truth has its own way of finding light. And kindness, even when given from empty hands, can return one day as the door that finally opens.